Afrique mon Afrique. Thank you for watching the Dachi Kanya video podcast. This is the Dachi Kanya video podcast. In Africa today, when people think about leadership, they mostly think of politics and dictatorship. Meanwhile, many Africans are conquering other sectors in spite of their meager resources. Dachi Kanya shares the experiences of these leaders with you to help build the leadership skills of upcoming African leaders, both at home and abroad. I have here with me Mr. Moses Baiden for the show today. My name is Gracia Ajaman. Ladies and gentlemen, I introduce to you the chairman and founder of Margins Group and its subsidiaries, which operates across 7 different countries, Mr. Moses Baiden. Thank you very much for being on the show with us today, Mr. Moses.
Thank you for inviting me.
Okay, so let's get the ball rolling. Let's talk a bit about your family.
Okay. I was born in Sekandi. My mother was a teacher. My father was a businessman. And I went to Mfansum School. After Mfansum, well, I went to Chapel Hill and then to Mfansum School. From there, I went to the University of Ghana, where I was admitted to the law faculty. From there, I went to the Ghana School of Law. In my first year at the School of Law, I started a business. And that's the only job I've had since
then?
1990 till now.
Wow.
So, very short story, one CV, one job, 30 years.
What are some of your hobbies?
Reading,
Reading,
swimming, business, if you can call it a hobby.
Sure, in your world.
These are my top 3 hobbies.
Okay, so let's take, for instance, you're in an exam room and you are being asked to describe your country from a touristic standpoint. How are you going to describe Ghana?
I think Ghana is a very beautiful country. It's well endowed. It has all different kinds of topologies within place. In Accra, on our eastern range, we have mountains, we have spectacular waterfalls. Okay. We have fantastic people, very warm, with a great sense of humor. We live in the center of the world. We're just on Greenwich Mean Time and 15 degrees of the equator. It's the closest landmass to the center of the world. So I like to think that Ghana is the people that the world turns on.
All right.
And everybody must come to Ghana because it has a unique history. And the first country that was independent south of the Sahara. This has been a beacon of hope and inspiration for many, many other African countries. In fact, I dare say that in Africa, Ghana probably has the best political respect of most nations. And that's a lot of diplomatic power because of what we've done for Africa in terms of liberation, independence, and the African unity idea.
From your country of birth, which other African country do you admire most?
African country, well, I should say of late Rwanda.
Rwanda, why?
Well, I've been to their museum of the genocide, and it's a harrowing story when you see how many people were killed, and the reasons why they were killed. It's a lesson that tells us of the limits to which ignorance and human cruelty can travel. And when you finish walking through that genocide museum, it's very emotional, and it's a very revealing and enlightening experience as to what happens when the wrong people have power. But then when you see what has become out of the ashes of the tragedy and the wickedness, because no matter how depraved people are, no matter how ignorant people are, there's always a possibility that men and women can rise up, they can forgive, they can forge a new society, they can be enlightened enough to learn lessons from the past, and they can build on that. So on the basis of that, if you see what socio-economic and political progress has been made, there are still some challenges. Many people talk about human rights, issues and so on. But overall, as a package, if you look at the travel, the country's travel, that's remarkable.
Okay.
It shows the endurance of human beings. It also shows and acts as a beacon of hope for other African countries that no matter what happens, there will always be, if we put our minds to it, progress.
Okay.
Yeah.
Based on your experience as the founder of Margins Group, how are you going to define leadership in your own perspective?
Oh, well, leadership has many, many volumes of literature written about it, and people describe it in many ways. But simply put, if a person with a vision that resonates with other people, that he's passionate about, that has an impact economically, socially, politically, and also in terms of humanity, people then rally around that idea. So leader has followers who are pursuing a very passionate and impactful idea that is going to change the world positively in some sense.
Can you name an African leader who has had an impact on you as a leader?
Oh, I'm a businessman, so I think that you look at Dangote, I admire a lot because he's looking at building a business that's beyond one life, one lifetime, and trying to have an impact globally by actually making things, products, services, solutions, commodities across the board, and having that can-do spirit, that whatever it is, if we put our minds to it, it's not about our color. It's about how enlightened we are, how passionate we are, and how we're able to assemble knowledge around the things that we want to develop. And he's proven that he can go global. So I think the biggest thing in Africa is we need confidence in ourselves, and we need to be productive. He's an example of somebody who has changed the paradigm and is going global with the business. So it should be an example for other African business people that if we can generate that level of productivity and efficiency and wealth and engage people, employ people, teach people, bring people along, we don't need to be beggars. You know, we rather like to give than to receive. We can have our own destiny in our own hands if we eschew this mentality of dependency and entitlement, and rather we stick to rational legal frameworks that engender focus on getting better economies and providing a much more equitable and stable society.
Okay. So in your own opinion, what makes an African leader stand out in the crowd of mediocrity?
Well, to be original. You know, sometimes mediocrity is a result of the goals and values of society. If the society that you live in celebrates mediocrity, then it lowers the standard, so people don't do more.
Yeah.
You know, so as a people, if we enlighten leaders, where enlightenment means that you have read enough, known enough, analyzed enough, thought enough, experienced enough, in order to appreciate the consequences of your action, in order to guide your action to have the biggest impact, not just as an event, but you know, throughout the whole cycle, from the beginning to the end. Then, in that case, you can impact better. You know, so when that happens, then you put along people with you. So that enlightenment and leadership is extremely important.
So what are some of the biggest challenges facing African leaders today?
Well, they say that people get the leaders that they deserve. So the biggest challenge is that the leaders come from the people.
Okay.
And it's not so easy for African leaders. We always blame our politicians and so on for where we are, but I think it's a collective thing. You know, if the people have values that do not allow you to do what is going to be impactful and advance the social, economic, political interest of your own people, it drags you back.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, there's so many ways that leaders think about improving the lot of their people, but in the end, they're not able to. Why? Because the people themselves are focused on mediocre goals and values.
Yeah.
If we take it, the people elect the leaders, then they deserve the leaders that they get. So the challenge is that the people themselves have to be enlightened enough in order to make enlightened choices by considering between alternatives and choose and having the mindset and knowledge and enlightenment to choose the best people for the best moments.
So what has been your defining moments, the aha moments that caused you to realize you could actually lead others and have an impact in their lives?
Even business-wise.
It could be your personal life. Or
Okay. I mean, there are several aha moments, but
Yeah.
I mean, in keeping with the topic that we're talking about, so the problem with us is that history shows that because of slavery, because of colonialism, because of miseducation, because of even the current geopolitical forces that work to make Africans think that there's a better place to go, we're not able to recognize the value that we have and what we need to do in order to be able to take advantage of being African. So my aha moment would be that, when I was 27, I decided that we were going to manufacture in Africa.
Okay.
Because build a high-tech factory in Africa, making secure cards and banking cards, etc., etc. And I was in Copenhagen trying to raise money to start. And I remember walking into trying to prepare for the meeting the next day to convince people to lend money to this project.
Yeah.
And I said to myself that, the day before at lunch, somebody had mentioned that it was going to be very difficult, and Africa is a place where the laws don't work. There's not been any example of a high-tech, factory like that having been built. We're talking 1997. After lunch, I was thinking to myself, I said, but this can't be. After what are we talking about? We're talking about a building, right? Now, a building is a building.
Yeah.
Provided it's designed properly, the structures are correct,
Yeah.
and it meets all the best standards, and you can, sort of make the benchmark to your objective. Then a building here in Copenhagen, in Paris, in London, in China is the same.
Yeah.
Provided that you're changing to meet climatic conditions, maybe a better air conditioning in a hot place. It's the same building. So the aha moment was look, we're going to get through with this. So next day I get to the meeting with the finance consultants, and I told them just what I told you. So I said to them, so in my mind it already works. You are the consultants. You have to figure out how you're going to make it bankable. And that's an aha moment. And today we build the biggest factory in the whole of sub-Saharan Africa to produce secure cards. And that's why I talked about the enlightenment. Because if you're at a certain point where you've done all these, and it doesn't come cheap. People want to get rich in 2 days. It doesn't happen like that. It's not sustainable. I've been in this area for 30 years. I started as a young man. 23, registered the company at 24. Now I'm 54. I started with $100 down. Companies in 7 countries. We employ directly over 400 people. But all over the world, we work with big companies, employing thousands and thousands of people. Some, turnovers, doing billions of dollars in turnover. And we work with them because we believe what we're doing. They know we understand what we're doing. We're confident in what we're doing. We've learned what we're doing, not by running the first day, by taking a step at a time. Starting from a garage with $100 and building slowly to what we build now in several countries.
What has been your worst leadership moment that caused you to almost give up on your leadership aspirations, and how did you recover from that?
Worst. I don't know what I've seen my worst yet, but the problem with leadership is that you're trying to translate a vision, and you want to translate that vision to people who are following you. And for me, that's where the difficulty is. As a leader, Every leader may not even be recognized as being a leader in their lifetime, especially depending on how far their vision is. So you look at the great leaders of this world in every sphere. Some of them even get crucified like Jesus Christ. They cut him and put him on a cross and killed him. And then 1,000 years afterwards, everybody's it's the leading religion in the world.
Yeah.
You know, you take people like Steve Jobs, who created the iPhone, and you know he worked so hard he even died before reaching his pinnacle. You know, so there are various ways that people are going to lead, and the difficulty has always been trying to get people to understand what the vision is. And in my company, several times I've almost gone bankrupt, several times, because either I'm not able to explain to people fully what I'm trying to achieve, or if I did explain to them, they didn't understand. And sometimes when people have left the company because they don't understand, or something happens, or it's an environmental problem, then you get very sad, because it's very difficult to keep up a positive spirit when you have environmental issues. That's nothing to do with you, but it's a question of the environment that you're in. And this environment, it's very difficult sometimes, not only for the people that follow you to explain to them and to give them hope and courage as to what you can achieve, and to keep them believing, but it's also the macro environment where sometimes you wonder, it's as if people hate themselves. People think very narrowly, you know, what we call the scarcity mentality. Because they think small, they want to bring everybody down. But you have the abundance mentality. Because there's so much in human ingenuity that we don't even need to hate people or bring them down. Or we need to focus on what we're doing. People say they want to get rich. I say, how much is rich? They can't say. You know, because rich could be $1,000.
Yes.
It could also be 1 trillion, like Amazon. Doesn't matter. No, it depends on what is in your mind and what you're going to do with it. Yeah.
So what habits have you included in your daily routine as a leader?
Oh, I mean, daily routine, time to think, time to read, time to connect with other people, espousing different ideas, learn from what's going on, follow the trends, listen to the news, have time to pray, have time to communicate with your team. So the routines take away 90% of what you have to do. If you are organized and you're trained properly, it doesn't matter what you do. You have a certain discipline and set of rules that you work with. So when I wake up, you say a prayer, you turn on your computer, you look at your calendar, you look at what you have. I knew you're coming at 3 o'clock. It's like, how long is it going to be? So they calls me, get me now, we're going to be here at 3 o'clock. I've promised to be here for an hour. Before you came, I've had 6, 7 meetings already. And now we're having a conversation, you know. After I have a conversation, I have another meeting. So because 90% of this is run by routines, and then you have tools. Tools means may have a lot of digital tools, right? So I can work on my phone anywhere in the world. I can be on my company's platform. I can have video calls with people. I can answer emails. I can write while I'm on the beach, wherever. So these tools and routines, they make your life easier. And so if you are lucky enough to be born in a place where you can be trained properly, that's good. But aside that, even if you don't have the lack, you can also learn by just watching. People do a lot of work in a day that other people would take weeks to do. And it's based on their routines and their tools.
So what is your vision for Africa?
My vision for Africa? I just think that everything is not static. Things change. Sometimes they take a long time. There was a time in history where the libraries of Egypt and Mali were the lights of the world. You heard of Mansa Musa and the famous Mali libraries. You heard of the libraries of Egypt, the pyramids, and you heard of even in Ghana, the Great Ashanti Kingdom. You heard of even before independence, the great Fanti merchants and intellectuals who fought to keep our land, went as far as the people like Mesa Saba, who I like very well, but also on the Transfer Board. If today you read what they were writing and what they were saying, and you look at what we are doing today, it seems that we've retrogressed in terms of our mindset, our intelligence, and our intellectual abilities. It's amazing. So my hope is that we rediscover that which is good.
Okay.
That which is good, and leave that was bad.
Okay.
And build on that to build a better, enlightened society.
Say you are made the president of the country Africa. What will be the first policy you are going to implement in your first year?
I think self-reliance, all policies that bring about self-reliance will be the first ones. You know, I don't see why we should be importing more than what we grow, but we can grow. So subject to WTO rules and international global rules, as much as possible, we should make everything that we can make here and not import it. And we should build the capacity so that our GDP will go up. All resources that are in our ground belong to us. Why should they be exploited by other parties when we can train our own people to exploit it? So self-reliance is great. I'm not African president, but I'll try to, if it's hypothetical, right? Yeah. is to you know, make sure that the Africa is self-reliant and that we're enlightened, we're each other's brother's keeper. But at the same time, we're unleashing the potential of the youth and their creativity.
So now to your parting words, what advice would you give to the youth out there who also want to become leaders like you?
Well, I think that I've given all that, but just to recap, that there's a tremendous work to be done in order to get to the point where you have the capacity to be impactful or to have a competitive advantage, do something different. So life has got milestones, right? So you don't have to miss those milestones. I mean, from 0 to maybe 14, you should spend time reading. Learn how to build your concentration. Learn how to read different things so that you have the capacity to absorb.
So before you go, we would like you to give us a quote, that's something that always inspires you whenever you say it or you recite.
My own quote or somebody else's quote?
It could be yours or something.
We can make up one right now as we talk. Okay, what quote do you want?
Let's make up one.
That in this digital age, our mindsets and our ability to connect to centers of knowledge will define our future. Well, so yes, I mean, there's so much to talk, but these pillars of thoughts, I think, is what's going to construct the highway on which we can liberate Africa and make it productive.
All right. So thank you very much for being on the show with us today. We really learned a lot, and then we also wish you all the best in all your endeavors.
Thank you very much. I enjoyed it.
You're welcome. Thank you for watching today's episode of the Dachi Kanya video podcast. See you same time next week. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and as well follow us on our social media handles at Dachi Kanya. My name is Gracia.